Today, we speak not about tricks or tactics, but about authenticity, about the things men do, quietly, genuinely, that awaken admiration in the hearts of women. These are not performances. These are reflections of presence, of strength balanced by softness, of awareness rooted in action. Consistency in actions builds quiet trust. When a man is consistent, he becomes a source of calm amid the unpredictable storms of life. This consistency doesn't require grand promises or loud declarations. It shows itself in the small, repeated gestures. Checking in without being asked, doing what he says he'll do, showing up not just in presence, but in energy. A woman notices these patterns more deeply than he realizes. Her heart registers the rhythm of his behavior. When a man's words and actions match repeatedly over time, she begins to feel safe. Not safe in a dramatic, cinematic sense, but in a grounded, soul-deep way that tells her she can exhale when he's around. He becomes her calm, not her chaos. In the beginning, she might test this consistency. Not because she is playing games, but because experience may have taught her that many people start strong and then vanish. So, she watches. Not always consciously, but she observes. Does he follow through even when no one is looking? Does he keep his values intact when it's inconvenient? Is he reliable in the silent moments as much as the loud ones? The more he proves this without needing applause, the more trust forms in the unseen spaces between them. Trust that doesn't need explanation. Trust that just is. A consistent man becomes predictable in the most comforting way. Not boring, but dependable. She knows that if he says he'll call, he will. If he promises to support her through something difficult, he does. If he claims he wants to grow, he shows growth through action, not just words. Consistency shows maturity. It means he doesn't change based on his mood, the attention he receives, or the temptation of distraction. He is steady, and steady men are rare. Steady doesn't mean emotionless. It means grounded. His consistency becomes a kind of emotional shelter she can rest under. There's something quietly powerful about knowing that someone is exactly who they were yesterday and who they'll be tomorrow, not because they're stagnant, but because they are anchored. He isn't swayed by trends or peer pressure or temporary highs. He is deeply rooted in his principles. That gives her the freedom to be vulnerable, to open up, to show her flaws without fear of judgment or abandonment. Because consistency isn't just about doing the same things. It's about being the same person in the best way possible. A man who is consistent becomes a mirror for her own growth. In his steadiness, she feels inspired to become more herself. He doesn't confuse her with mixed signals. His energy matches his intention. When he's interested, she feels it in his tone, in his presence, in his priorities. When he's upset, he doesn't shut down or lash out in unpredictable ways. He communicates, not perfectly, but sincerely. Over time, she stops waiting for the other shoe to drop. She stops bracing for disappointment. She stops wondering if his affection will vanish tomorrow, because she knows he shows up, not just in grand gestures, but in small, sacred ways. And when she begins to rely on his presence emotionally, that's when real intimacy starts to unfold. A man's consistency speaks louder than 1,000 romantic lines. It's the text in the morning to make sure she made it home. It's the remembering of the little details she shares. It's the support when she's quiet, not just when she's smiling. It's the showing up even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. That's when his character shines. Anyone can be consistent when it's easy, but the man who is steady in storms, That's who earns her respect. And often that's the respect that deepens into love. Consistency builds trust without needing to demand it. It creates a rhythm she can dance to without fear. It allows her to soften without hesitation. It gives her permission to believe again. And belief is a rare gift, especially for a woman who has once loved and lost, once trusted and been let down. When a man becomes the exception to the disappointments of her past, his impact becomes unforgettable. Not just because he's different, but because he's real, because he's steady, because he's safe. Not in a passive way, but in an empowering way. There is a quiet strength in reliability. And this strength doesn't need to shout. It doesn't seek attention. It simply shows up day after day, in honesty, in effort, in presence. And while others may try to impress with charm or intensity, the consistent man impresses by just being himself, reliably, authentically, fully. That's the man she doesn't forget. That's the man she trusts. That's the man she secretly loves. Not for the fireworks, but for the foundation. Because at the end of the day, excitement fades, beauty evolves, circumstances change. But the man who keeps showing up, he remains. And that makes all the difference. Protective energy without control is deeply attractive. When a man naturally radiates a protective presence, it's felt without needing to be declared. He doesn't try to dominate or control her choices, her voice, or her space. Instead, his energy communicates. I've got you. In the way he carries himself, in the way he pays attention, in the way he shields without suffocating. A woman senses this difference immediately. Control feels like a cage, but protection feels like a sanctuary. When he offers protection without trying to limit her, it allows her to feel safe while staying fully herself. It doesn't ask her to shrink, it allows her to expand. She doesn't need a bodyguard. She needs a presence that makes her feel calm in chaos, a tone that brings her back when her mind spirals, a presence that becomes a shield against life's noise. This man doesn't need to prove himself by being aggressive or loud. His strength is quiet but solid. He doesn't impose rules on her under the label of love. He trusts her to be who she is, and in that trust, his protective nature shines even brighter. She sees it in how he walks on the outer edge of the sidewalk, not to impress, but because he thinks of her first. She feels it in how he watches the room when they enter a space together, not out of jealousy, but out of natural awareness. This kind of man doesn't compete with her. He supports her growth even when that growth makes her more independent, more radiant, more powerful. He doesn't see her light as a threat. He becomes the grounding force beneath it. And in return, she gives him more of her softness, not out of obligation, but out of deep admiration. Because he allows her to lead in her own ways while knowing he's always in her corner, unshaken, unwavering. That's what real protection looks like. It's the ability to hold space for her without needing to be the center of it. The protective man doesn't use fear as a tool. He uses presence. He doesn't say, "Don't wear that," or "Don't talk to him." Instead, he says, "I trust you, and I've got your back, always." He doesn't need to monitor her every move because his presence gives her the freedom to move with ease. And when she knows she has that freedom and still chooses to stay near him, that's when he understands the real power of non-controlling protection. It earns respect, not resistance. It deepens intimacy, not distance. She notices how he reacts when things go wrong. Does he step up or shut down? Does he blame or protect? Does he lose his temper or hold his ground? The protective man does not let chaos make him cruel. He stays rooted even when storms hit. He becomes a shelter, not another storm. And that is the kind of strength that melts walls, the kind that turns hesitation into trust. It's not about being perfect or fearless. It's about being stable enough to make her feel she's not alone in facing life's pressures. This man makes her feel emotionally protected, too. He never uses her vulnerabilities against her. He holds her secrets with care. And when she breaks down, he doesn't judge her. He listens. He supports. He reminds her of her strength, even when she forgets it. That's what women crave. Not control masked as protection, but care that empowers. He doesn't try to fix her because he respects her power to rise, but he stays beside her as she does. His presence whispers, "You don't have to go through this alone." And that message goes deeper than anything he could say. Protective energy shows up in small, consistent ways. It's walking her to her car. It's checking if she got home safe. It's holding her hand not just in love, but in solidarity. It's noticing when her energy shifts and gently asking why, not demanding answers, but offering a space to share. It's being someone she can fall apart around with being judged or dismissed. It's stepping in, not to control her, but to remind her that she's not in this alone. And in a world where many women are used to fighting battles by themselves, that feeling is sacred. He doesn't protect to feel powerful. He protects because it's part of who he is. He doesn't need recognition. His protection is natural, effortless, and silent. It's in how he makes sure she's emotionally okay, not just physically. It's in how he defends her when she's not around. It's in how he respects her voice even when they disagree. That quiet, respectful strength becomes something she leans on. Not because she's weak, but because he makes her stronger. A woman flourishes in the presence of a man who protects with pride, not possession. Control wears the mask of love, but protection wears the soul of it. One restricts her spirit, the other nurtures it. One makes her feel small, the other helps her feel seen. She doesn't want to be owned. She wants to be honored. She wants to feel that her heart is safe in someone's hands who doesn't need to dominate it, to cherish it. And when she finds that in a man, she doesn't forget. She blooms not because he completes her, but because he respects her enough to walk beside her, not in front of her. His protective energy becomes a quiet foundation. It doesn't demand, it doesn't shout. It simply holds space. And that space becomes the sanctuary where she can rest, where she can dream, where she can trust. Because trust is the root of love, and love grows in the soil of safety. That kind of safety is not built through fear or force. It's built through presence, respect, and consistency. That is the power of a man who knows how to protect without needing to control. And that is the kind of man every woman secretly hopes to meet. Listening with presence makes her feel seen. It's not just about hearing words or nodding at the right moments. It's about being fully there, mentally and emotionally, when she speaks. When a woman shares her thoughts, fears, dreams, or even just the details of her day, she's not always looking for a solution. What she seeks is a connection. A man who listens with presence offers more than just ears. He offers his attention, his stillness, and his heart. He's not scrolling through his phone, planning his next sentence, or waiting for her to finish so he can respond. He is tuned into her, and she feels it in her bones. That depth of attention is rare, and when a woman experiences it, it makes her feel deeply valued. In a world full of distractions, where everyone is rushing and multitasking, being present becomes a superpower. She notices the difference immediately. A man who listens with presence doesn't interrupt or dismiss her feelings. He doesn't try to minimize her emotions or compare her experience to his own. Instead, he sits with her words, allows silence when needed, and makes space for her expression. It's not about fixing her or teaching her. It's about being there without judgment. That's what makes her feel safe to open up, to go deeper, to be real. Presence is the gateway to emotional intimacy. And once she experiences that kind of connection, superficial interactions no longer satisfy her. His body language speaks volumes. The way he leans in, maintains soft eye contact, nods gently when she makes a point. These nonverbal cues tell her that her voice matters. He makes her feel like in that moment, she is the only person in the world. That sense of exclusivity, that rare kind of attention, makes her feel cherished without a single romantic word being spoken. When a man listens with presence, he's not just learning what she says, he's learning who she is. He picks up on her patterns, her silences, her excitement, her pain. And he remembers, not because he's trying to impress her, but because he genuinely cares. Listening with presence is an act of emotional generosity. It shows patience, maturity, and emotional intelligence. It communicates that she doesn't have to fight for attention. She doesn't have to raise her voice to be heard. She doesn't have to explain herself twice. She is enough, and her words matter. In those moments of true listening, trust is built without effort. She feels less alone in the world, more connected, more seen. That feeling is healing. It dissolves the armor she's learned to wear and invites her to be vulnerable, even if she's been hurt before. Men often underestimate the power of simply being there. Not to lead, not to solve, not to advise, but just to be. To hold space for her emotions without rushing her out of them. To allow her to be messy, uncertain, even contradictory. She doesn't want perfection in a listener. She wants presence. She wants to feel that her inner world is just as important as the outer one. And when a man shows up in that way consistently, she finds herself wanting to share more, trust more, love more. Because listening is not passive, it's an active form of love. The man who listens with presence doesn't make her feel like she's too much. He doesn't shame her sensitivity or dismiss her intuition. He validates without always needing to agree. He asks thoughtful questions, not to interrogate, but to understand. He listens not just with his ears, but with his eyes, his energy, his stillness. And she notices. She notices that when she speaks, he doesn't just wait for his turn. He absorbs her words. He doesn't weaponize them later. He honors them. That kind of emotional respect creates a level of closeness that physical attraction alone could never match. Listening also shows up in how he remembers. When she mentions something small, a dream she had, a fear she confessed, a goal she's working on, and he brings it up days or weeks later, it hits her deeply. She realizes he was truly present when she spoke. He wasn't pretending to care. He genuinely did. That kind of memory, that kind of thoughtful recall makes her feel not just listened to, but valued. It makes her feel significant. It makes her feel that her inner life matters as much as her outer appearance. This presence in listening carries over into conflict too. When they disagree, he listens without getting defensive. He doesn't shut down or raise his voice. He doesn't try to win the argument. He tries to understand her perspective. Even when emotions run high, he stays grounded. That stability allows her to express herself freely, knowing she won't be punished for her honesty. In those hard conversations, His listening becomes a bridge back to connection. It says, even when it's hard, I'm still here. I'm still with you. Over time, she begins to associate his presence with peace, not because he avoids difficult topics, but because he approaches them with care, not because he agrees with everything she says, but because he respects everything she feels. That emotional safety becomes the bedrock of their bond. It gives her the freedom to grow, to explore, to be unapologetically herself. And the more she feels seen through his presence, the more she wants to pour into him, to nurture him, to support him in return. It becomes a cycle of mutual care, built not on words, but on deep awareness. Listening with presence is a rare form of emotional leadership. It doesn't seek control. It offers connection. It doesn't demand love. It creates space for love to rise naturally. And for a woman who has spent years feeling misunderstood, talked over, or emotionally dismissed, this kind of presence feels like coming home. It feels like a place she can return to without fear. A place where she is not just heard but understood, not just seen but held, not just loved but known. And that kind of connection leaves a mark that never fades. Subtle leadership rooted in humility speaks volumes. A man doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard or assert dominance to be respected. True leadership isn't about commanding attention. It's about guiding with grace. When a man carries himself with quiet confidence, when his actions lead without needing applause, it creates a sense of direction that others naturally follow. Women, especially those who are emotionally intelligent and self-aware, are drawn to men who don't force leadership, but embody it through calm, intentional energy. He doesn't try to control situations, but his presence influences the environment. He becomes the steady pulse in a room full of noise. Leadership begins in how he leads himself. He takes responsibility for his choices, his energy, and his growth. He doesn't blame others or circumstances for where he is in life. He owns it all. This kind of self-accountability is rare and powerful. It tells her that if things ever get difficult, he won't run, deflect, or project. He'll reflect, adapt, and show up better. A woman respects a man who leads not just externally but internally. When he speaks, there's thought behind his words. When he acts, there's purpose behind his movement. He doesn't try to prove that he's a leader. He simply lives as one. His humility keeps his leadership grounded. He doesn't need to be right all the time. He doesn't shut people down to protect his ego. He listens, he learns, he admits when he's wrong. And in doing so, he builds a trust that can't be faked. Women feel safe around men who can lead with softness, who don't need to dominate to feel powerful. His strength isn't fragile. His humility doesn't make him weak. It makes him magnetic. Because he's not in competition with the woman in front of him. He's in collaboration with her. This kind of man makes decisions without being controlling. He can plan a date, take initiative, and make thoughtful suggestions, but he always leaves space for her input. He doesn't try to impress with authority. He connects through intention. A woman senses when a man has a clear sense of direction in life. It's in how he speaks about his future. It's in how he handles stress. It's in how he responds when plans change. He leads without rigidity. He adapts without losing his grounding. That kind of flexibility, combined with vision, makes her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. Subtle leadership shows up in small moments. It's how he calms tension during conflict, not by overpowering, but by being present and emotionally composed. It's how he offers guidance without preaching, how he shares wisdom without condescension. When a man can lead with questions instead of commands, with encouragement instead of criticism, he opens the space for growth, for understanding, for partnership. A woman flourishes in the presence of this kind of leadership. It doesn't require her to shrink or follow blindly. It invites her to walk beside someone who knows how to move forward with clarity and kindness. The humility in his leadership means he's always evolving. He doesn't act like he knows it all. He seeks feedback, not validation. He's willing to learn, especially from the woman he loves. He values her insight and doesn't feel threatened by her strength. That emotional maturity allows their relationship to grow in balance. She doesn't have to carry the weight of everything, nor does she have to submit to his way alone. They move as a team, but he remains a steady point of reference, not because he forces it, but because she trusts his discernment, his calm, his ability to guide without ego. Women often admire men who can hold space for chaos without becoming chaotic themselves. In stressful moments, his leadership shines, not through shouting or control, but through calm clarity. He assesses, adapts, acts. He creates solutions without panic. He reassures with his demeanor, not just his words. She watches how he treats others, especially those he doesn't need to impress. She notices how he responds to pressure. These moments tell her more about his leadership than any title or position ever could. Leadership is also reflected in how he handles emotional terrain. When she's overwhelmed or vulnerable, he doesn't become uncomfortable or dismissive. He leans in. He becomes the anchor. He doesn't try to fix her emotions or silence her truth. He simply holds it with care. That ability to lead through emotional presence, to create a safe space for expression, is one of the most underrated qualities of a man, and it's one of the most appreciated. A woman feels protected, not just in body, but in spirit, when she knows she can emotionally lean on someone without fear of being misunderstood or rejected. His humility allows her to feel seen, heard, and respected. He doesn't need to dominate conversations. He shares the space. He celebrates her ideas. He uplifts her voice. That kind of partnership builds a bond that is rooted in mutual admiration, not power struggles. She doesn't feel managed. She feels met. She doesn't feel led away from herself. She feels guided deeper into her truth. And that's the essence of real leadership, not to pull others in your direction, but to walk with them toward something greater together. In romantic relationships, subtle leadership plays an even more important role. It creates the dynamic of emotional safety and direction. He doesn't fear being vulnerable or honest. He opens up first if needed. He leads the relationship with emotional integrity, with clarity about intentions, and with actions that reflect care. He sets a tone of maturity which encourages deeper connection. And in doing so, he allows love to grow not from a place of chaos, but from a place of deep, stable alignment. A man who leads with humility inspires trust without needing to demand it. He attracts loyalty not because he insists on it, but because he earns it. His presence says, "You're safe here," without needing to speak it. And once a woman experiences that kind of grounded, respectful leadership, her heart opens in ways it never has before. Because in that space, love can breathe. In that space, two people can rise together. Not in competition, but in quiet, powerful unity. Emotional restraint with emotional awareness is rare power. A man who possesses both is not cold or detached. He is composed, steady, and deeply in tune with himself. He doesn't let every emotion take control of his actions, but he doesn't suppress them either. Instead, he feels his emotions fully, understands them, and chooses how to express them with intention. This balance is what sets him apart. He's not ruled by anger, ego, or impulse. He responds, he doesn't react. In a world where many are either emotionally shut down or emotionally explosive, his calm awareness becomes a magnetic force. Women notice this almost instantly. His presence feels grounded, safe, and emotionally intelligent. He's not just present in body, but in heart and mind. A man with emotional restraint doesn't mean he lacks depth. In fact, it's the opposite. He feels things deeply, but he processes them with maturity. When he's angry, he doesn't lash out. When he's disappointed, he doesn't punish or withdraw love. He reflects. He asks himself why he's feeling what he's feeling before projecting it onto others. That inner self-awareness gives him control not over others, but over himself. This kind of emotional control is a mark of strength, not weakness. It makes him dependable, not robotic. It means that even in high-stress situations, he won't let his emotions become weapons. And that kind of control builds lasting trust. Women feel emotionally safe around a man who knows how to regulate his emotions. They know they won't be blindsided by an outburst or dragged into emotional chaos. He's not emotionless, but his feelings don't become storms that sweep away everyone around him. Instead, his emotions are like waves. He knows how to ride, not drown in. That steadiness makes him a rock in turbulent times. It allows her to be open with her own feelings, knowing he won't panic or collapse under emotional weight. He becomes a sanctuary, not a source of stress. He expresses vulnerability without drowning in it. He can talk about his fears, his pain, his doubts, but he does so from a place of reflection, not desperation. He's not trying to be rescued. He's inviting connection. And that's a subtle but powerful difference. He owns his emotions instead of letting them own him. He's not afraid to cry, but he doesn't cry to manipulate. He's not afraid to be hurt, but he doesn't use hurt as an excuse to hurt others. His emotional awareness gives him depth, while his restraint gives him discipline. In moments of conflict, this emotional balance is especially powerful. He doesn't resort to insults, guilt-tripping, or shutting down. He listens. He expresses his perspective with clarity and respect. He's not afraid to say how he feels, but he chooses his words carefully. He seeks resolution, not victory. And this ability to stay calm and clear in moments of tension builds respect. It makes the woman he's with feel valued, even in disagreement. She doesn't have to fear emotional volatility. She knows he can handle not just the good times, but the difficult conversations with grace. When a man has emotional awareness, he can also read the emotions of others with sensitivity. He notices shifts in her mood, energy, or tone. He doesn't jump to conclusions, but he's curious and concerned. He checks in gently, not forcefully. He gives space when needed, offers support when asked, and doesn't take her emotions personally. That emotional sensitivity doesn't make him weak. It makes him profoundly attuned. And that attunement allows him to be a better partner, a better listener, a better man. He doesn't need to constantly talk about his emotions to prove he has them. His actions reflect his inner balance. The way he comforts her when she's anxious without trying to fix everything. The way he holds space for silence without making it awkward. The way he admits when something affects him without blaming others. These quiet moments reveal the strength of his emotional world. He's not performative. He's present. He's not dramatic. He's disciplined. That difference is felt deeply. Women often encounter men who either suppress all emotion or let their feelings erupt unchecked. So, when they meet a man who can feel fully and still hold composure, it's not just refreshing, it's healing. It challenges their past experiences. It rewrites the narrative that men can't be emotionally safe. And that realization opens the door to deeper connection. She doesn't just trust him with her body or her time. She begins to trust him with her heart. And that trust grows each time he shows that he can hold space for emotions without letting them control him or hurt her. This emotional maturity also means he's self-correcting. If he does make a mistake, he doesn't get defensive or distant. He acknowledges it, learns from it, and takes accountability. That growth mindset shows that he's not stuck in old patterns. He's evolving. And a woman feels that. She senses when a man is aware enough to learn from life and humble enough to keep growing. That humility, combined with strength, creates a powerful emotional presence. It tells her she doesn't have to carry the relationship alone. It tells her she has a partner, not a project. He knows when to speak and when to listen, when to lead and when to follow, when to offer support and when to give space. This wisdom doesn't come from reading a book or repeating what he's seen. It comes from real emotional experience, from being honest with himself, from taking the time to understand his own heart. That inner clarity radiates outward. It affects every interaction, every choice, every connection. It creates a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in truth. A man with emotional restraint and awareness doesn't avoid emotions. He honors them. He knows emotions are not weaknesses. They're signals. He's learned how to read those signals without becoming consumed by them. He's not afraid of depth, not afraid of silence, not afraid of complexity. He embraces it all with calm, with presence, with strength. And that rare combination of feeling and self-control makes him unforgettable. To a woman, this kind of man is not just attractive. He's irreplaceable. He becomes the one she feels safe to be fully herself around. The one who can see her chayas and not flinch. The one who can hold her fire without needing to extinguish it. The one who reflects her strength, not just by challenging it, but by matching it with his own depth. He is her calm in the storm, her mirror in the dark, her partner in the emotional truth of life. And that kind of man is rare, but once found, never forgotten. Authentic appreciation creates emotional safety. When a man genuinely appreciates a woman, not just for what she does, but for who she is, something deep shifts in the connection. Appreciation is not flattery. It's not empty compliments meant to please or manipulate. It's real, grounded recognition of her essence, her effort, her energy, and her presence. And when that appreciation is consistent and sincere, it becomes the soil where trust and vulnerability grow. A woman blooms in the space where she feels seen, not just looked at, valued, not just wanted and cherished, not just used. When appreciation is authentic, it tells her that her presence matters in more than superficial ways. It starts in small moments, when she shares her thoughts and he listens attentively, then says thank you. Not just out of politeness, but with warmth. When he notices the details she thinks no one sees, like how she always remembers his preferences, or how she creates harmony when tension builds, or how she makes an effort to show up when life is heavy. These things may seem small on the surface, but to her, they mean everything. When a man acknowledges them without her needing to ask, it tells her she's not invisible. That alone is powerful. To be seen without having to scream is a quiet kind of healing. Authentic appreciation isn't performative. It doesn't show up only in grand gestures. It lives in how he speaks about her in her absence, how he defends her when others don't, how he brags about her with pride, but never ownership. She feels it in how he looks at her when she's not trying to be impressive, in how he values her thoughts, even when they differ from his own, in how he respects her independence instead of being threatened by it. Appreciation in its real form creates emotional permission. It tells her she can be honest, flawed, complex, and still worthy of kindness. A woman who feels appreciated opens up in ways she never has before. She becomes more generous with her love, more expressive with her heart, more trusting with her truth. Because deep down, emotional safety isn't just about protection from harm. It's about knowing you are valued for who you are when no one's watching. When a man consistently shows appreciation for her character, her mind, her efforts, her resilience, she begins to breathe differently. She no longer walks on eggshells. She no longer questions her worth. She settles into the truth that she is enough, and that belief unlocks a deeper level of intimacy. Appreciation also builds a feedback loop of love. When she feels appreciated, she wants to give more, not out of obligation, but from overflow. And when he receives her love with presence and gratitude, it fuels the connection with trust and harmony. A man who expresses appreciation without condition sends the message that her value is not tied to her performance. She doesn't have to earn his love by being perfect. She is loved and appreciated simply by being herself. That kind of energy removes the mask she's worn for too long. It invites her to be raw, real, and radiant. There is a specific kind of appreciation that goes even deeper. The appreciation of her emotional labor. Many women carry invisible weight, remembering the little things, managing emotional dynamics, offering silent support, sacrificing their own needs for the sake of harmony. When a man notices this and speaks to it, noticing when she's tired, overwhelmed, or still showing up anyway, it touches her heart in ways that words can barely describe. It tells her he sees the unseen and values the unspoken. That's a level of connection most never reach because it requires presence, care, and a deep awareness of her world. Appreciation isn't about overpraising. It's about being intentional. It's looking her in the eyes and saying, "I see how hard you're trying, and I'm grateful." It's leaving a message that says, "I'm proud of you, even when things are tough." It's the touch of a hand or the softness in a voice that reassures her she is not taken for granted. A woman who feels consistently appreciated becomes more emotionally secure. She doesn't need to ask if she matters. She feels it. And that emotional security changes everything. It shifts how she speaks, how she loves, how she walks through the world. Authentic appreciation also allows her to rest. Many women are tired of proving their worth, tired of feeling like love is something they have to earn. When a man loves her openly, thanks her often, and notices her deeply, she gets to exhale. She gets to let go of the need to be impressive and just be real. That state of ease is rare and precious. In that place, she can grow, not because she's being pushed, because she's being watered. Appreciation becomes the sunlight her soul was waiting for. And once she feels that warmth, she will reflect it back tenfold. When a man makes appreciation a part of his everyday communication, not just on holidays, not just after a fight, but as a lifestyle, it becomes a form of emotional leadership. It creates a tone in the relationship that elevates both people. Gratitude becomes a shared language. Love becomes the atmosphere, not just the goal. Appreciation softens her, strengthens her, and stabilizes the connection in a way that arguments or hardship cannot destroy. Because even in hard times, if she still feels appreciated, she will stay emotionally open. She will keep choosing to love through it. Men often underestimate how much impact their words of appreciation have. A single sentence can echo in her heart for weeks if it's real. A single moment of noticing can undo years of feeling unseen. She doesn't need constant praise. She needs consistency in recognition. When he chooses to express it, even in the chaos of daily life, it tells her she is a priority, not an afterthought. And when she knows she's a priority, her energy toward him becomes more alive, more nurturing, more whole. Love becomes a cycle of giving and receiving, powered by appreciation and fueled by trust. At its core, authentic appreciation is one of the most powerful ways a man can make a woman feel emotionally safe. It requires no money, no perfect words, just awareness and sincerity. It turns ordinary moments into connection and routine days into intimacy. And once she knows that she is not only seen, but valued in her fullness, without needing to perform or pretend, she gives a kind of love that cannot be bought, taught, or replaced. Because in the end, it's not grand declarations that win her heart. It's the quiet, real moments when she knows he sees me, he values me, and he's grateful I'm here,